Hey guys, Coach Hill here from tumblingcoach.com and CheerCore, and today we're going to be talking about the tumbling training pyramid and how it can help coaches problem solve a little bit better and faster, run more effective classes, and if you're an athlete, I'm going to show you how the pyramid can help you train more effectively to get the skills that you want. Okay, so what is the tumbling pyramid, or as I jokingly like to call it sometimes, the Great Pyramid of Tumbling? Basically what it is, first of all, I'll pop it up on the screen right now if you haven't seen it. I only released it a couple days ago. As you can see, the pyramid has, obviously like any pyramid, a bunch of different layers, but I wanted to actually start at the very, very bottom, the foundation. No, not the strength and mobility part, the purple part. That would be the mindset. Unlike a normal pyramid, this pyramid, as you'll see, kind of is on like I call it like a wobble board, right? If you're a flyer, you know exactly what wobble boards are. That's where you train your flying position and it kind of goes side to side and you got to balance it. Well, the tumbling pyramid is actually on a wobble board because that wobble board is called mindset. And the reason it wobbles is because mindset isn't something that you just do once and you have it, right? It's not like strength. If you spend 3 to 6 months becoming really, really strong under a good program, that strength level will stay with you for a while before it tapers off and dies off. So it's not like you set the foundation and it's there. Mindset is something you have to work on every single day. Things like doing gratitude journals, whether you do it the first thing in the morning or later at night before you go to bed. Things like having a growth mindset and understanding the strategies behind it. And just having positive self-talk. So those things, it's like brushing your teeth. You got to do it all the time. And if you don't, the entire pyramid actually depends on it, and that's when the pyramid tips and crumbles, and that's when you get things like mental blocks or lose your skills and get frustrated. So the mindset underlines the entire pyramid, and I urge you that if you haven't taken the time to work on your mindset, that you do so. I have a couple articles on my website called on growth mindset that I highly recommend that you check out. It'll give you some specific strategies. So if you have a negative thought, it'll give you the positive thought to change it into. And again, like any other habit, it's going to take some time. Okay, so once you've got the mentality and your mindset correct, now we can actually move on to the specific phases of the pyramid. So the very bottom phase, the foundation of the pyramid, is obviously strength and mobility. So if you're not seeing it right now, I'll probably pop up the pyramid image here, or I'll blow it up. You can also go and download this image for free. If you look in the video description, it should be somewhere in the comments where there's a link. You can go and grab it. You can keep it on your phone. You can print it out. Do whatever you want with it. Share with your friends. But the gist of it, the strength and mobility, the reason it's at the bottom is because before you're able to do the skills you want to do, you have to have the body that supports the forces that it's going to be taking on to be able to do the skills. So, for example, a back walkover will require a much lower level of body strength than a back handspring compared to a back tuck, layouts, fulls, whips, and more complex passes. Now, when I talk about strength and mobility, I'm talking about strictly your body's ability to able to generate force and absorb force safely without getting hurt, right? So this has nothing to do with, muscle for the sake of muscle. I'm not saying you have to be skinny, short, tall, whatever. It has simply to do with your body's strength levels. My recommendation to improve it, you should be doing weight training at least 2 to 3 times per week combined with an athletic diet. Now, what is known as an athletic diet? Well, there's plenty of resources out there. It's outside the scope of this video to talk about an entire diet plan. But one resource you can check out is the Cheer Diet. But also I recommend just reaching out to a nutritionist that you know, like, and trust, and getting them to help you come up with a nutrition plan that works with your training plan. But you got to get that foundation level down pat. My good friend Jessica, she has a saying. She actually has a book called Body Before Skill, which is a really good way to sum it all up. You got to have the body before you can have the skill that you want, or even be able to train the skill that you want. Okay, so After strength and mobility, the next step up on the pyramid is your body shapes. Now, if you've been to my website before, you know I have a complete playlist. I have 12 videos on each of the 12 body shapes, which you can check out from the description below in the link. I also will pull up a link somewhere on this video. I don't know where I'll do it when I edit it, but it'll be up there. You can visit that link and you can actually watch the videos on each of the shapes. Now, shapes are great because they can be worked on anywhere. You can do them at home safely. You don't need a gym to work on your shapes. And they're very easy to self-correct, right? They're not moving. There's no complex movements going on. They're just a specific static thing. So you can look at yourself in the mirror, you can take a picture and know where your corrections lie. So you don't really always need a coach, although obviously it is good to have a coach keeping an eye on you. So body shapes are next. And the reason that they're the next level up is because, again, like everything, they do require a certain level of body strength to be able to pull off, especially the more advanced shapes like hollow positions. Going over 10 seconds on the hollow with really, really good form is a good sign that you're working your way up to strength, 10, 20, 30 seconds. And other shapes have the same thing, like a candlestick will obviously require a lot more effort than something like a L-sit or a lunge. Finally, the thing about shapes is you have to understand that they are the fundamental, you can think of them as the letters or the atoms that make everything up, right? So for example, if you're trying to get a back handspring, or if you're trying to get a clean back handspring, if your bridge isn't perfect or close to it or isn't excellent, let's say your bridge has open legs, crazy wide arms, head all over the place. Well, if you can't hold the bridge perfectly, or you're a coach watching and your athlete can't hold the bridge perfectly, how are they going to do it in their back handspring? How is a back handspring expected to have perfect straight legs, nice arms, good head position, if they can't hold it on the floor? So I hope that kind of makes sense why shapes are important and why you should be spending time on them. I recommend every tumbling class spends anywhere from a minute to 5 on shaping, even if it's advanced athletes, just to get them to brush up, because you can never do basics enough, in my opinion. Okay, so after shapes, we're on to the third level of the pyramid, which is fundamental movements, okay? Now, they're called fundamental for a very specific reason, and that's because they show up over and over again in most of the skills you're going to be doing in tumbling. So let's take a round off handspring, for example. What are some of the fundamental movements in that? Well, one would be a needle kick, right? One would be a handstand pop. I'm sure everybody watching, if you've trained tumbling, you've done a million handstand pops. That is a fundamental movement, whether you're pushing off the floor in the round off or you're popping off the floor with your back handspring. You're going to need that motion. It's a very fundamental motion. If you're doing a standing tuck, something as simple as a squat jump, that is a fundamental movement. Now, I have 12 in my system, but I recommend you come up with whatever that you need. If you're an athlete, think of all the skills you do and some of the movements that are fundamental to you. If you're a coach watching or if you're director of a program, come up with your own. Make sure you have some fundamental movements written down that show up over and over again, and then work them. Now, the quality of your fundamental movement is going to depend on the bottom layers of the pyramid. Is the athlete strong, and do they have good mobility? And do they have good, body awareness and shaping, right? So as an example, if you are trying to do a handstand pop, well, if an athlete can't hold a really good handstand for at least 10 seconds on a wall, how are they expected to do a handstand pop, which has movements and strength combined? So as you can see, that's why the pyramid is structured that way, because everything builds on top of each other. So for fundamental movements, I recommend throwing them, again, in your class. Just like shapes, it's good to spend about a minute or two, or even line drills, like handstand pops down and back, squat jump down and back. Just not only does it act as a great warm-up, but it also acts as a great motor pattern. If you guys have some of my posters, you'll see what I'm talking about. Some of the fundamental movements are already there. So you're probably already doing them, which is great. But make sure you focus on excellence as well. Okay, so we are working our way up. We're almost at the top. Now we're at level 4, which is drills, okay? Now, I don't have to harp too much on drills because chances are, whether you're an athlete or you're a coach of a program, I find that about 80% of someone's time is usually spent on drills, so which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. I'm happy to see that drills are making up the meat of classes and a majority of the things that we do, because as everybody says, drills build skills, which is very true. But we have to remember everything else under the pyramid. And at the end, I'm going to go over how you can use the pyramid to problem solve. But for now, let's take care of drills. Now, when it comes to drills, I like to make sure there's a couple things that you do, whether you're a coach watching or an athlete. Number one, and these are just random tips for me, It doesn't apply all the time, but generally this is what I like to look for and I like to apply. Number one, simplicity. If I have a choice between a complex drill that needs, 3, 4, 5 pieces of equipment versus a drill that just needs 2 pieces of equipment, I'll generally go towards the simpler one. Okay, that's number one. Number two, realistic. So as an example, the boulder, I don't know where it is, somewhere. Oh, it's behind the camera. So I'd rather use a boulder than something like just like a square block, because a boulder is more realistic to the shape of the handspring that I want. So try and make the drill as realistic possible to the skill that you're doing, right? Next tip for a drill is make sure that it's challenging enough but not too easy, right? We have to be in that right zone. Sometimes I see drills or a coach will set up like a circuit and it looks great, but half the athletes that are in that class, for them that drill is just too easy. And when the drill is too easy, it actually is not benefiting them. You might think it is, and again, some work is better than no work, but the basics should have been taken care of at the lower rung of the pyramid. So for things like body shapes and movements should have already taken care of that. So there's no need for drills to be so easy that it just kind of feels like you're wasting time. But also on the other hand, drills shouldn't be so hard that, if it takes an athlete more than 5-6 reps to figure out a drill and they still haven't got it, it's still not working for them, you need to change it up, right? So it has to have that happy balance, happy medium of where it should be. If a drill is too hard, you're not going to get skills. If it's too easy, it's going to take a little bit too long. So find that happy medium. Okay, another thing I'll say about drills, another point that I like to look for myself is make sure it's as hands-off as possible. Okay, so I'll put up a video of a drill for either it's like a back tuck or layout, but you'll see that the way it's set up takes care of most of the issues for me. I don't really have to be there to spot. I don't really have to do too much. I just have to kind of set it and forget it, as I like to call it. So the more drills you can set it and forget it, the better. If you are setting up a circuit, what I recommend coaches do is make sure, let's say you're setting up 5 drills, it's a 5 drill circuit, make sure that 4 of them are set it and forget it, and 1 of them is where a coach is needed to either kind of be hands-on and give a little bit of a spot. So that's kind of my golden rule for drills that you guys can apply in your classes. Okay, so we're at the second last level of the pyramid, which are obviously skills. So we have the drills, and now it's time to put the skills together. Again, not too much needs to be said because a lot of athletes and coaches know obviously what it's like to throw or do a skill. But a couple of points I'll mention when it comes to the skill is make sure that the drills that they've done keeps repeating. One of the biggest things that I see, or one of the biggest problems I see, is coaches or athletes will do a certain amount of drills and then be like, okay, now it's time to do the skill. That means only do the skill because, hey, I've done 10 reps of this drill and I'm done with it. No, it's actually more of a cycle. So you do some of the drills. So let's say you're learning a back handspring, right? You do some boulder work, some snap down work, some rounded jump back, maybe a quick spot, and then you go try it on a tumble track, air track, wherever. That's throwing the skill. But let's say it doesn't go the way you hope. Let's say it's a little sideways, it's a little wonky, it's just not as clean. You maybe landed on your knees. That doesn't mean you just keep throwing the skill, okay? My golden rule is if an athlete is attempting a skill, I just do like a 3-strike rule. So they get let's say something technically goes incorrect, they get 1 strike, 2 strike. After the 3rd incorrect repetition in a row, it's time to take a step back, right? And then they'll do a couple drills and then they go try again. So although the drills and skills are on the pyramid and it looks like they're separated, it's kind of like a cycle that I want you to remember. And that's the best way to train it. Now, we're gonna talk about what happens when the skill isn't working, you go to drills and that's not working. So we'll discuss that in a second. But for now, just remember, skills and drills are like an ever revolving door. Okay, and now at the peak of the pyramid, or at the top of the pyramid, we have our passes. This is where the entire puzzle picture comes together and you put all the pieces together and you have your pass, right? Now, one of the things I'll say about passes is to make sure that every pass has a good rhythm to it. So as an example, if you're gonna be doing, let's say, round off, back handspring, tuck, make sure that the rhythm of it is like round off, handspring, tuck, right? It's called rhythm training, and I like to do that with my athletes sometimes where whether they're slow or fast, my goal is they can get faster in the rhythm, they can't get slower, or they can maintain their rhythm. So again, constant beat, or they can get faster. Because I don't want to penalize my athletes for being too fast. There's no such thing. You want power in your tumbling. So that's just a quick tip for passes. Another one I'll give you is that change the elevation of passes. So let's say an athlete has got it pass down pat, right? Round up handspring tuck, no problem. Well, how do we challenge them, right? And that's to change up surfaces. So, let's say they're beautiful on air track, they're beautiful on floor. Well, now you can make it harder by making sure they go uphill. There's a ton of things you can do to challenge the passes. So once they get to the top of the pyramid, that doesn't mean it's done. It's time to now perfect it. So going uphill is one, giving them more challenging surfaces. So things like throwing in a crash mat. So everybody knows who's ever tried. When you do a round up handspring on a crash mat, it's tough because the crash mat takes away your bounce. So you have to really muscle and push through and have perfect angles. So that's a couple of the ways to make passes challenging so that the athlete always, athletes don't get bored of what they're doing. So, and once they've perfected the pass, then we repeat the process for the next skill. Okay, and finally, I wanted to take a quick couple of minutes to talk about how you can use the tumbling pyramid to problem solve your skills. So whether you are an athlete watching or a coach watching, I'm going to show you how simple it can be. So let's take a quick example. Let's say the back handspring. It's usually the skill that's the problem. So let's say the back handspring has legs that are open. So the froggy looking back handsprings that are like this. Let's take that example. So we have a video of a froggy looking handspring. How do we use the pyramid? Well, step number one, you go down one rung of the ladder or the pyramid. So from the skill, the one step down is drills, right? So the first thing we got to do is we got to put a couple of drills together and see whether that problem exists in the drill. So, using the boulders, obviously one, doing it down to cheese. So like, obviously we're going to assume this, this frog handspring happened on floor. So, okay, let's try it down the cheese. Let's try it on the boulder. Let's try it on an air track or a tumble track or a trampoline. Is it still a problem on that? Yes? Okay, now we got to go one step down. Well, under drills, we have fundamental movements. So now I'm going to check things like handstand snap down, right? When someone does a handstand snap down, are they opening their feet, or is that particular athlete opening their feet? Again, if the answer is yes, okay, then we got to go even further down. Now let's take a look at their shapes. Chances are they're doing their bridges like this, which is why it translated into their skills like that. But it could not be the case. Let's say that their shapes are perfect. Well, if that's the case, then you don't go down any lower. Now you found the spot where the problem started to happen. And they weren't able to pick on it or pick out the problem at that particular time or wherever it happened in their training, and now you know where to work from. So we know the fundamental movements need work, so that's where we spend a majority of our time, and then once those are fixed, then the next thing, and so on, right? And that's how most tumbling problems should be fixed, because it makes it super easy. And there will be times, regardless of the level, where you'll keep going down the ladder and you'll get to the base level, which is strength, right? Again, assuming their mindset is correct. They're coming in with a growth mindset. They're not, angry that, they have to take a step back. They're not, fearing it. They're comfortable in the gym, things like that. If they're not, then obviously the mentality has to be taken care of first, because like I said, if the mentality isn't correct, the whole pyramid's gonna fall over, right? So we're gonna assume the mentality is good for now. So again, there will be times where you'll keep going down the pyramid and you'll end up with the strength and mobility section, and you'll be like, wow, this skill problem was not actually the skill, is because they were lacking strength and mobility. So you're gonna have to put together a strength and mobility program and get your body ready to be able to fix the skill that you want it to fix. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you guys found the pyramid useful. Again, if you did, go in the description and download it. You can download the image, you can keep it on your phone. Please share this video with your friends, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. I release new videos. I try and do it every week, but they may happen a little bit more often. If you guys have topics that you would like me to cover, whether it's tumbling skills, drills, or coaching techniques, I'm happy to do so. Again, just drop it in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time. Tumble safe.